This video is brought to you by Black Dragon Miniatures. Go check out their website today at blackdragonminiatures.com for all your wargaming and hobby needs. What's up guys, and welcome to Bleeped Up Productions. Today we have something a little bit special. My good friend James Hall couldn't be with me today, so you've got me on my own here at Bonescon, and I've bumped into Mike and Glenn from Gaslands. Oh boy, I'm excited because I said I was going to try and get an interview with you guys, and I was like really nervous at first to try and get one, and then I was like, could I get an interview? And I was like, yeah, fine. It's all good. So, what we're going to do is we're going to sit down, we're going to talk about a little bit about Gaslands and then some of the other projects you guys are working on, because obviously I played one of your game. I've yet to play yours, Glenn. I'm excited to play it though. Sure. So we can talk about those projects as well, but we'll focus a little bit on Gaslands to begin with, and then we'll evolve from there. So, for people who don't know what Gaslands is, can we have like a little brief description of what it is and like, you know, the main bits and bobs which makes Gaslands so great?
Yeah, sure. So Gaslands is a post-apocalyptic car combat game where we use Hot Wheels cars in place of any specific miniatures. So it's the miniatures game that you've already got the models for. It came out from Osprey Wargames, one of their blue books, a year ago November. And the game is essentially about driving fast, shooting things, exploding, and generally having a good time. There's plenty of ways to play the game right out of the book, but the way that we tend to play and demo it, because it's our favourite way to play, is the death race. So you are driving around through race gates in the right order, faster than the other guys, or being the last man standing.
Yeah, I always think that if the idea of winning the race because you blew up, flipped your car and passed the finish line upside down and on fire, but you've passed the finish line, appeals to you, then Gaslands is probably the right kind of game.
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome sauce. So, if you don't know what Gaslands is, or if you know what Gaslands is, it's kind of hilariously grown to something, I think, kind of like, as we were talking off camera, organically, because it seems the community has really embraced this. Like, who would have thought it? Toy cars and wargamers coming together to just embrace this game as much as it is. It's quite. I bet it's a bit of a shock though as well, because it's like your first game as well, isn't it, Mike?
That's right. Yeah.
And now, how the community have embraced it. I bet it's kind of like, wow, holy crap! I didn't expect that.
It was definitely unexpected. Because it's my first published wargame. I've been wargaming since I was about 12, and started writing games shortly after that. But this is the first time that I managed to get a publisher to take an interest and pick something up and put it out there. I just didn't really have any idea what to expect. What I knew that I wanted to do was make sure that I was out there in the community supporting it, making the website happen, putting blog posts up about the design of the game, you know, making the different forums on Facebook and Board Game Geek and on the website itself humming with, you know, stuff that people wanted to talk about. But I didn't really know if that was going to be enough, how much work you had to put in, because it was really just a handful of us doing the game development, and then basically just me kind of doing the whole web presence side of things. And because Osprey put out a ton of games every year, and they don't have a lot of manpower to do the kind of support that I think a war game, which is always going to be based on its community, needs to really thrive and grow.
I mean, I think there were moments, because you originally put the first beta out fairly open on the website. There were times before the book came out where we were sort of going at conventions and places like that, and it didn't have an official status, and total strangers would walk over and say, I've been told I need to look at this, I've been told that I have to come and see this. And there were moments there where you were sort of thinking, I haven't done this before, but this feels a bit special, this feels a bit unusual. People who, I don't know how they managed to tunnel their way down to find it, have found it and then sought us out and gone, that's a thing unlike other things, that's a thing that's special. Because I think you see it when you run it at conventions, that it stands out to people, it's easy to get over to them, the concept of, you know toy cars, you know tabletop gaming, or those things.
And the slow build over the last 15 months, I think, a lot of that has been to do with the barrier of entry to the game being quite low. Like if you have bumped into the game at a convention or somebody has shown it to you, the question is, do you want to pay £10 for a rulebook and £4 for like a team of cars in order to have a go at, rather than hey, I'm excited about this new miniatures game that I've got. Do you want to drop like 150 quid on an army in order to play it with me?
Yeah.
So people, I think, are just prepared to take a risk on it and see whether it's any good, and then hopefully once they play it, they're like, oh wow, okay, this is doing something slightly different to other games, so I want to play it, I'm excited to play it, and I want to share it, because one of the things that people might not know about Gaslands is that it is a game that works really well with multiple players. It can play up to... We've played 8, I think. Did you say you had 10?
I've had 10 play it once, and that was with a few of my teenage friends and a few small children, which I want to talk about later on, because I think my idea of the Ghostbusters car that I've kind of made, and instead of having a remote control like exploded car, I have Slimer coming out, and instead of exploding, it just goes over and splats itself into it, and if you hit the car, it just gives you two hazards, because it's just, I can't believe you slimed me, and I was like...
I mean, it definitely has to have a Beverly interaction.
It's true, but that's what I'm saying, because when the kid was like, why are you using remote control cars, why didn't Ghosts just come out of this? And I was like, you're 8 years old. I'm having this, but you're taking all the credit every time I tell people, because that's just amazing.
Put him on the Gaslands design team.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the things about Gaslands has always been that it's trying to get into that thing when you were a kid, pushing cars around, just messing about. Now it's like, okay, you can go back to your 8-year-old self and give him this rule set and go, now it's real, now it's proper, you can sort of play it as a grown-up.
That is really exciting in conventions, like, where was it? We were at Salute, I think, 2 years ago when we were pre-release, and having like just a group of 7 and 8-year-olds. There was like 6 of them all playing the game and having fun and explaining to each other how much fun they were having. I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want to come out of the game. That I wanted it to be that entry level where the barrier of entry is low, not just because the cost is low, but because the game itself makes sense when explained, to your son or daughter, and that also you don't need a bundle of specific wargamey stuff to get going. You don't even need a tape measure. You certainly don't need like a big wargaming table, because it plays on pretty much any size. And so all of these factors kind of contributes to lowering the cost and therefore making it easy for that community to just grow more organically, because people are prepared to take the risk on it. And that's really what's happened. The traffic that I'm seeing through the website, the Facebook group, I don't actually see the book sales like that detailedly from Osprey. But the things that I can see has been like a nice, slow, steady growth, rather than a big hump at the beginning and then it kind of flash in the pan petered out. So that for me has been the most, almost out of everything, the most like exciting part of it is that it's slow and steady.
I mean, I think it's because it's a system that keeps rewarding you as you drill down into it. You pick up a couple of toy cars from a pound shop and you photocopy the bits out the back of the book. And if you never wanted to go beyond that, that's fine. But the game then says, okay, now you've got those, you can fit a few things onto those cars. Once you've done that, you could maybe pick a sponsor. Once you pick that sponsor, maybe you could perk up your drivers. Then you can get into the audience votes. And, I meet people at conventions who, I love Gaslands, it's so fantastic, I play it every single week, and I've been doing so for the last 6 months with like 4 or 5 people. I say, oh great, which is your favourite sponsor? And they go, I don't know, I haven't got that far through the book yet. And there's more than enough chunky goodness in that first half of the book to keep us playing to it. And it's like, oh, that's brilliant, that's fine, crack on with that. Know that there is, detailed interactions and other things if you want to go there. You don't need to, but it will keep paying you back if you choose to.
So of course we've been growing on that by putting out the time extended free downloads, which I know you've had a look at.
Oh, some of them are stupid. Like, not stupid as in like a bad way. Stupid as in James sending me a message saying like, leave the new times extended and you will lose your shit. And I'm like, really? Sorry for cussing. And I was like, really? And then the first thing I'm like, Truckosaurus. Everyone knows I love dinosaurs. This is now a problem project that I need to get. So like I bet that's been really fun doing the time extended, just because like you've got your core rules and sorted, but then it's just adding more stuff where people are like, man, I really want to have this oh, that vehicle's cool. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I bet it's been fun, the whole idea.
Definitely, because the Offspray format is very small, and that was what I was given. Like, you've got exactly this many pages to work with, and it's not a very large number of pages. And of course, I'm like, nah, I want to put all the game in that I can cram in, which isn't always the right answer. So lots of things came out again. So the first time extended was this whole War Rig campaign, which just felt like it needed to be part of the game because Fury Road and because Mad Max 2. Yeah. And once we took it out, I thought, okay, well, here's a route to put things back in again, and also, you know, we can spend a little bit more time between the original release of the game and whenever these expansions come out, like spending more time playtesting them and making them as good as we can make them. And so as the time extended thing started to work, then Offspray were obviously looking at that going, I wonder what we do with this. Because originally we were debating whether or not this would be a sold product. I'm really happy that it was a free download. And actually, the time extended will always be available to download for free. But they've decided to bundle up all this goodness from the time extended and combine it with a revised version of the rules. And we've got a hardback, extended and revised edition of Gaslands coming out sometimes later in this year. Called Gaslands Refueled.
Oh, nice.
So it's not a version 2 because all the game is going to be exactly the same. It's just a little bit of rewording and tweaking because we've now got, you know, oodles of feedback from the community about what bits are a bit, you know, confusing to read off the page or so on. But it's also going to include a ton of the stuff that you've seen in Time Extended and some more things that we're working on at the moment to expand the game some more.
Yeah.
Cool beans.
I mean, I remember when we turned in when you turned in the original manuscript, and we had sort of that thickness of notes of this would have been cool, would have liked to see. I remember when we were doing Time Extended and we were doing the new weapons, and Mike sort of handed me over a bunch of ideas, and one of them just said in capital letters, "A gun that shoots cars instead of bullets," and no explanation of any kind. And I was like, what possible world is that? A tiny car? Enormous gun? Yeah, and there has been a sort of a certain level of just saying mad things back and forth until they filtered out to something that was still insane, but playable and tabletop and interesting and fun for people. So it's been a fun. Yeah. A fun mucking about with things sometimes. Yeah.
I love it though, because even just sitting here, and if you're watching this and you don't know what Gaslands is, you can see that like you guys are super passionate about this. Like there is that hilarious thing of cinematic when everyone's like, "Oh, what's Gaslands?" and the first thing people say is like, "Well, it's Mad Max, isn't it? You know, it's Mel Gibson driving this big car and like giant war rigs and people screaming and exploding." I'm like, it's not really like that though, because there's a lot more to it. Because I think when you've looked at like the Facebook groups and the communities and stuff, you see so many ideas coming out, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't think of that," or like you're like. Some people are like, "Oh, I've had that idea, but I wouldn't have thought of doing it that way." And I bet that's been kind of a nice thing to have as well. About
definitely. I mean, that was. I mean, I don't know if it was luck or artifice, but I wanted to create It was important, I think, for Offspray that each of their games creates like a background that is light enough that you can kind of find your own space as a gamer inside it and put the things that you want in the world. But it was also really important to me that it isn't just. Yeah, it's just Australia in the 80s, it's Mad Max, because there's not enough to play with there. It needs to be more technicolor, it needs to be able to fit more video game and cinema and comic book tropes into it so that you can kind of bring your own fun thing. And if you want to paint up a team of Decepticon robot cars, or if you want to paint some, you know, desert pirates, and if you want to do something that's really like wacky races, like it could all sort of fit together into this silliness. And that's why the game itself kind of the conceit is Gaslands is a televised death show. You know, think Running Man from Arnold Schwarzenegger. But that gives you so much juicy stuff to play with. And some people are turned off by that idea of it being a television show, but actually it gives you so much play for like Hollywood nonsense that it's great for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you were always a big fan of giving people the cinematic moments, and there are the ones you can play for that you can earn through the things you do, but there's always one moment in any game when we're just running demo games, something will happen when you know what just occurred on screen.
Yeah, the time that we put the rule in where when you die you move forward. Yeah. Like, didn't have to be there, you could have just exploded or whatever, but like the fact that you move forward a bit and then you turn over on your top so that you're an upside down car, and then you find out whether you explode. Like, it's not just that you die and that's it.
Yeah.
It's like you die and then possibly some more explodey carnage happens.
Exactly.
And that's very important to me.
Yeah, it is,
well, you know, the when you wipe out, you might flip. The when you flip, you lose hull. When you die, you move forwards. Means that you can finish, wipe out, flip, lose your last hull, die, cross the finish line, and you can literally end up crossing the finish line upside down on fire.
It's that cinematic thing, though, like you guys were saying. It's like whether we look at the Fast and the Furious or anything like that. When you see a car crash in NASCAR or the Formula One, they're always very dramatic and like. We've played games where, sure, everyone has exploded and no one wins, but bloody hell, that was rememberable, you know? It's like the demo that I helped you guys run yesterday. It was like Martin glue gunned me. So if you don't know what a glue gun is, if you're watching this for the first time, I'm demoing this to new people. I did not do anything for the first turn. I just sat there and I was like, right, I'm going to teach you how to play the game then. That's really cool. And then towards the end, his friend could have won the game, but instead he decided to try and shoot Martin off the board. Martin died. His car exploded. That triggered an explosion on his car and exploded. And my guy was just casually going past gate 3 going like, victory!
Zooming through the fireball.
Exactly. It was amazing.
Played 4 round gods.
But that's what Gaslands, I think, also has. Like, I think with any war game you always have like, oh, my badass guy is going to fight your badass guy. But in this, it's always like, right, you build a team and it's like, cool, I've got a couple of like small guys, but that's the mama. I want that to do some work. And I think the idea of you guys just having like the teams and like you were saying, like James and me have only really just like Glenn was saying at the beginning, we've only really touched on our battle reports. We've done just cars and a few special rules. We haven't done sponsors, but the idea is we want to do a league where we will have teams. Because then you would think about it as a series, you'd be like, your sponsor is just like, mate, you did terrible in that last race. What are you doing with your life, you know? And I think that's why that works really well. And yeah, I don't know.
Well, I can give you a hint of what's coming next in Time Extended, because although we're working on Gaslands Refueled, there is a Time Extended which I just sent off to Osprey to be polished off, and that is going to be the proper Wasteland campaign system.
Oh wow, sweet.
Which has been in an earlier form, was available through a UK War Games magazine. Unfortunately, I've forgotten the name. I think it might be just War Games. But
one of those guys.
I think they had the campaign, and then the other one had the vehicles.
Sorry to go. But we did a bit more playtesting and because playtesting campaigns. Oh my goodness, is that work? So we've done more playtesting. We've tried to get that as good as we can conceivably get it, and by that means making a campaign system where the person who wins the first game is not, de facto the winner of the campaign. It's difficult.
You have to fight the avalanche.
You have to fight the avalanche. But yeah, so that's what's coming next, is the Wasteland campaign system. So you are rolling for your scenario. You're setting out a televised schedule. You're alternating between games where you've got the audience watching and games where you're scrapping for resources in the wasteland. And then, as you are suffering damage in games, of course, you're gathering dings and dents, which are going to affect your car later. But there's some interesting ways that the damage mechanic works that isn't completely how you'd expect. So we tried to put some good stuff in there that makes it more interactive and engaging. That's what's coming next in TX4.
Really cool. Sweet. So we have 2 secret things, like Refueled and a campaign. That's exciting. Like, that's really cool, because I feel like there's elements for, like you said, like a TV schedule, like how you play the games. You feel like it would be like some of the scenarios. It's like, right, we'll turn up like you would do if it was like anything. It's like, I'm going to watch a race, and oh look, there's a caravan demolition derby or something. Like, it feels like that.
I mean, the thing that always annoys me in campaign systems is say the avalanche system, where if I win game 1, I get better. Well, I won game 1, so I'm already better than the other person. Now I've been made better than I was previously. Who's going to win game 2? Well, it's going to be me, because I was already better than you, and now I've got more stuff. And so trying to split that out in such a way that you could keep it competitive, and so the televised events allow you to split out that a thing happens in televised events and a thing happens in Wasteland that aren't necessarily directly sort of pushing victory and also pushing how much better you are. So you can have a version where you move towards winning the campaign, but your team doesn't get any better, and an event where your team gets better but doesn't move towards winning the campaign.
Yeah.
And giving people those different routes towards an end point and different places to end in with different stories.
Yeah,
I think is a way
and the campaign has the option to go cinematically wrong at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There's a way of diverting
cool.
the story, but we'll leave people to find that.
That's awesome. Yeah, Glenn, let's shed some light on the game.
Okay, so SSO, Spaceship Amiga, kickstarted this May-June. They were successful on the Kickstarter, we've done fulfillment and everything. So it is a 1 to 6 player, semi-cooperative, sci-fi survival horror game, essentially. So in the basic setup that comes in the base set, you're essentially working your way through 2001: A Space Odyssey. As something awful has happened on the SS Amiga, your team turn up to find out what it is, and if you can survive through it, you win the game. So there's essentially this challenge deck that slots out, and that's what tells the story of what's attacking you. So
it's worth saying this is a card game.
So
in a very small box,
in a tiny
ton of gameplay.
in a tiny. Well, the thing is, I can write gameplay. I can write game for free. I can't produce elements and components and other things for free. So it's a box that fits into a large letter format because I'm the distribution agent.
Yes, postage discount.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Love it.
So in a small box, you've got a fair. There have been people who've received it. It says on the side of the box 90 minutes gameplay, and they looked at it. There's not 90 minutes. 90 minutes if you get your head down and hammer through it. It's a very full-on experience. So you can slot out that AI deck, and the first expansion is, instead of the AI killing you off, the original captain has survived, gone mad, and is picking your crew members off. So there's any number of different sci-fi movies if we can keep sort of doing additional challenge decks. But it's semi-cooperative because you have the option, in theory, to betray your friends. The game is already coming for you, and if you turn on each other, you better have your game down tight, because if you turn on each other as well, you will get taken down. But the thing about it being semi-cooperative, you win as an individual, is it also allows you to sacrifice yourself for the other players. As a games designer, the only thing I can ask you to sacrifice is your chance to win the game. That's the only real sacrifice I can take from you. And so the opportunity to give you a cooperative game where you can do the math, figure out how far away from you are from the end, and realise that only one of us can win, and one of us can sacrifice our opportunity to win, so I can give up my chance to win in order that you win, is a chance to get people to look each other in the eye and go, yeah, okay, it has to be me. I have to take one for the team. And being able to get that element of sacrifice out of the players as well as the characters was one of the things I wanted to pull out of the game originally. And it's, because it's been my first sort of entirely sort of solo project, it also needed to be something that I could. It's £10 with UK delivery, and it still is, to be honest. So it's a way that I could get people in, who didn't know me, just give them something that hits them with a massive amount of gameplay. And then hopefully June, July this year, there should be another Kickstarter, which will be Moonfight, the deck unbuilder, which is another sort of slightly odd idea. So I love deck builders, but they have a single arc towards an endpoint, and sometimes you find your engines working just when the game ends. With Moonflight, halfway through the game, all the cards twist, and you go from having building abilities to trashing abilities, and at the end of the game you'll only score what's in your hand, not what's in your deck. And the person that trashes out their deck, you build yourself a puzzle in the first half of the game, and then you undo it in the second half of the game. And the person that most efficiently undoes what they did and can walk away with the perfect amount to carry is the person that ends up winning the game. So hopefully that's a way that it can give you the deck building goodness with a second half of the game that isn't deck building, which some deck builders do try to give you. So So that's there's
yeah, I'm excited to play this one. I have not had a go on this yet. We were going to have a little playtest of it this afternoon.
Still in prototype phase because you've certainly played SSO, but yeah, I want to show you Moonflight, see how it plays for you.
Awesome sauce. Right, so James told me that he wants more and more Gaslands, and now that you're bringing out another game, we feel like that's not going to happen because you've got another game. No, I'm kidding. There'll always be Gaslands. But it was just like, we want more.
She's my first child.
But we want more. Why is there something else coming out? This makes no sense. So now, if you want to explain that, Mike, your next adventure, should we
justify
not spending any more time on Gaslands.
You can't stop us writing Gaslands.
No, yeah, exactly.
I think it just keeps going.
So, whilst Gaslands was starting to sell well, I thought, here's my opportunity. So I sent a couple of emails to Osprey with a few different project ideas to see whether anything would fit into the lineup. And the thing that I was most excited about, and was that I felt like the longest punt, ended up being the thing that Osprey looked at and went, yeah, all right, we'll give you a risk on that one. So I said, I want to do a proper spaceship fleet combat game for you guys as part of the Osprey Wargames Blue Book line. And I had a this little tip here. This is how I always submit the submissions to publishers. I started with a sort of 200-word abstract of what the game was going to comprise of and why it was exciting and what the key features of, and then they presented a chapter list that kind of described what the structure of the book was going to be. And so in the description I provided some clues to a couple of unique mechanics, and actually some of the things that felt unique now have now ended up feeling like some of the more banal parts of this bizarre creation. But what I wanted to do more than anything was to write a spaceship fleet combat game which doesn't at all feel like a World War I naval engagement, because there's lots of lovely spaceship games and many of them just feel like that kind of thing. And so the game has a few hooks to get people interested. So I'll list some of the oddities.
Just list a few because I know how crazy it is.
I haven't mentioned the name of it.
I've demoed the game and I was still blown away by like how your little blurb was. Hopefully you will talk about certain different areas because I was like, what? What?
So the game is called A Billion Suns, and I am trying to create a very science fiction first war game. And so one of the first things about the game that you'll notice is that there is no army construction. You don't choose an army list in advance. What you do is each turn has a phase where you can start to jump ships into the jump points that you've deployed on the table, and you have to pay resources to bring the ships in, but you can basically just choose a la carte from the menu of stuff that's available, and looking at the situation in front of you, you're choosing the right tools for the job. But the resources that you're using to pay for those ships as you buy them in are the victory points that you're trying to collect to win the game. So you need to make an assessment of what is available in terms of the victory points from what's called contracts, which are essentially, there's a system AI that administers the system that you're in, and they've thrown up some jobs to be done, and those jobs might involve, mining some asteroids or collecting some evacuees from a science facility, or all manner of other science fiction tropes. And so, having started to get the jobs done, you're making the money back to pay off the ships that you've paid for, and of course somebody else then jumps in some ships, and now that's a juicy target, which if you can destroy that, you can take the resources off them, and so the game, over the course of 4 turns, escalates depending on how the players choose to escalate it in terms of the number of ships and the size of the battle.
So the one thing that has got me excited about this game a little bit was when I saw the demo table, and there was a table with the game on it, with a table on top of that table,
another table
with another mat, and then I was like, what? That was my first thing. I was like, what?
So I wanted to create a layer cake, wedding cake thing with multiple tiers, just to keep going. But I didn't want to give the impression that this was a game that required more equipment than you have.
Just have go to IKEA more often.
So we've talked about the fact that there are jump points where you're jumping in your ships. Now the thing about jump points is that you just put them down and then ships start to pop out of them. And what we realised during development of the game was wait a minute, it doesn't really matter where on the table I put this thing. I can always like jump out near something. I wonder if we put a jump point over here, and I wonder if we put a jump point over here.
Yeah.
And suddenly we realised that not only did the game support multiple tables, it's actually better when it's on multiple tables. So it's really, really like, you know, you can have a game that's split across multiple different surfaces, and the game basically just says, pick any number of surfaces that you want. You know, there's a windowsill over there, we can play on there, there's a desk here, we can play on there. And those become the tables. And so when you set the game up, you say, well, here's all the different asteroids and facilities and space stations and whatever that I'm going to deal with. We'll put those out on these different things. And then now I'm in a position where I've got to decide how to divide my forces across these different tables. Of course, you could just take a normal table and tape it down the middle. You don't have to be elaborate about this. No. But the point is that we're trying to do something that just it never feels like two battle lines arriving in the middle of the table, putting their handbrakes on and shooting guns at each other. There's always something much more science fiction-y going on.
Yeah, it's an encounter between groups of infinite resource within the infinity of space, but you don't have infinite resources.
That's the one thing.
You're not the guy running the fleet. You're the guy who has to answer for what he's done.
I did a terrible job at that. I got fired.
Yeah, you did get fired.
I love the. I always say I love the multiple table concept because again, the way that Gaslands answers the 8-year-old within you who's pushing his Hot Wheels round the floor is. With a billion suns, the part of you that had the spaceships on the floor and then said that the sofa was Alpha Centauri and the coffee table was Glaxnar 4, and that's where my base is. And it gives you that way again of answering back to that child within who went, can I do that? It's, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, absolutely you can do that. You can set up on the floor and you can have the breakfast bar as a tactical, viable option within your grown-up game, and you can have a chair. And we've just, we've pulled over chairs and gone, right, I'm having a tiny system there. And, I think we set up one time on a large desk and there was a bag set on the desk and someone sat up there. The other person moved the bag at a point and said, no, I intended the bag to be there when I set up. That was part of my plan, that should be the limitation of the system. And I think, I think luckily, Mike has this sort of viewpoint, and I do believe in it, is the more freedom you can give the players, they will pay you back by sort of going, I can do it, I can do anything, that means I can do everything, and try and let people run with those things rather than tying them back too much.
Yes, I'm very excited. We're about 3 or 4 months left of the development before I have to turn the manuscript in. Still lots of work to do, but we've sort of broken through at this point. Like about a month ago, I literally said to Glenn, I absolutely hate this game right now. But I'm really, really excited. Like, obviously, I think you're actually the first person that I've demoed it to at a convention. So thank you for being a guest.
It was amazing. It's a great. I'm not good at management resource, and that's what this game does as well. It has a cool tactical element, and also you're managing your resources as well.
That's
I was crap at that. That's why I'm terrible at most management resources. They're like, Lee, why are you always last? It's like, I'm just not good. It's fine. I'm all right with it.
Yeah, so there's 2 resources to manage. You've got the victory points that you're using to both buy ships and win the game, but then you've also got the second thing, which is you have a little helm in front of you, and this was really cool from the beginning of the game's inception, that I want to feel like I'm on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise, or I'm in at the command center of a kind of a big fleet facility, and I'm making my sort of broad sweeping decisions about what things should be doing. So you have this CEO's helm where you have command tokens, and you can place them down into different essentially commands that will allow you to make a battle group attack better, or make their shield stronger, or make them move more nipply, or do a combined order so that a couple of things can kind of gang activate together. And so how you use the command tokens during the turn then allows you to determine exactly where you want to apply the most force with your stuff. So it's just another level of kind of tactical and strategic stuff. It's worth saying that this is the thing that worried me the most going into the design of Billion Suns is I knew from the off it wasn't going to be Gaslands in Space. There's a Space Truckers game somewhere which is Gaslands in Space, but this isn't going to be it. This is going to be a little bit more of a head scratcher, and that's okay, I think.
I mean, I think we're getting to we're getting to the place where if you can tell stories. And I think that there are places where the contracts tell stories. That you're going somewhere and you've got to do it. You've got to find the prince process. You've got to rescue the princess. You've got to get her to the transport. You've got to get her out again. And while it doesn't have that knock things around, blow them up, laugh when you die thing that Gaslands have, what it does have, and I think it's something that's at the core of your design principles, is it's still telling there's a cinematic story. You know what the story was in Gaslands when you blew up. You know this happened, that happened. And I think again in A Billion Suns, whilst it's massive fleets potentially, if you choose to escalate to that point, blowing the hell out of each other, it's also a story where you know you've got to do this and then you've got to do that, and when you've done that, that will happen and that will happen, and you know, I must save the princess, I must outrun the destroyer, etc, etc. And I think that's the thing where hopefully people will still buy in through that. You know.
Yeah, I think when you described it to me, Mike, as well, was one of the things was, this is science fiction, and I was like, that's a very broad term. But then when we started playing it and all the words and everything, I was like, geez, this is science fiction. This is everything that you would assume with science fiction. It's not just like, this will do this will do that. No, it's like, we'll jump in, and hey, if you jump too close, you're going to get hurt a little bit. And I was like, wait a minute, oh yeah, I remember seeing that on Battlestar. Battlestar. You know, it's like little things like that. You're just kind of like, yeah, that is a risky thing to do, and just it does feel like Glenn saying, cinematic. And like when you said science fiction, I was like, oh, I don't know. There's a lot of games that say science fiction, but then when we were playing it, I was like, bloody hell, this is science fiction. This is crazy.
That's been another really worrying or nerve-wracking aspect of it, is that, like, there's car combat, that's a super niche thing. There's post-apocalyptic, which is pretty niche as well. Like, if you look at the number of movies and the number of games that exist in that. Science fiction is a broad church, and there is a lot of material to be shouted down by people who think that their science fiction is the one science fiction. And of course, it's an Osprey Blue Book, so it's going to have enough latitude for people to come to it and go, okay, spaceship rules, Osprey have done some spaceship rules, I want to play Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars, Star Trek, I want to be able to play, you know, any kind of modern, like, Expanse, like things that are really hard, things that are really cheesy, things that are really cinematic, things that are really gritty. Like, all of these things need to be somewhere on the compass, which is a lot to ask from a game system. And so I've lent a little bit more into the kind of hard sci-fi and the more modern side of things, but providing enough place where when you have to get a job done and you pop down a little Millennium Falcon from the Fantasy Flight Star Wars Armada, and you're like, let's get the job done.
Exactly.
I think the thing of it is that it's not going to disappoint you if you want that sort of high sci-fi end of things. I think, and that, you know, and I wouldn't denigrate anybody else's system, but there are times where you think it's going to be X, and you go for you look for that, and it just doesn't do it for you. I think the thing with A Billion Suns is, you know, if it fails, it's going to fail big. It's going to it's going to go, this is what we're going to give you, and we will give you.
Well,
you know.
I think my takeaway from playing the demo with you, Mike, was, right, I'm going to go save some civilian ships, and then I was like, I've got everything sorted, and he was like, well, that's not going to happen. I was like, what? And then he just jumps everything in there, and I was just like, this lonely gunship against a whole like armada of ships, and I'm just like. And then it's just like, you're coming with us. No, you're not. No, you are coming with us. And they're like, okay, we're going. Sorry.
Yeah, it does. It gives you those sort of those Rogue One moments where you know all of a sudden there's the battle fleet.
Oh my god!
If you've given me the option to spend the points, and I can,
and when you've seen one of those moves where you're like, well, I just give this guy a double move order, and then I hop through the jump point, and then I'm right there. And when you see that, and the other guy hasn't seen it, you're like.
We had a beautiful play test where somebody on this other table picked a thing up, jump hopped over to the other table, dropped the thing off, and then jumped out and completely left the game. And it was just this moment of that we need as much of that as possible.
Yeah. They just don't want you to have that thing, so I'll leave it in a different galaxy and then I'll bugger off. That's amazing.
That's going to be hopefully out from Osprey 2020. I don't have a date until Amazon tells me.
Amazon will tell us. Yeah, that's true. That is true.
But yeah, I'm very excited about that, and I'm really excited to see how people react to it. I don't know how much of the Gaslands community will move across from it. I'm hoping some people will be interested to see what the next thing is, but there'll be plenty more Gaslands coming.
Yeah, of course.
TX is not going to stop.
No, that's good to know.